I request our speaker, Mr. Ashwin Chaudhary, to take the charge for next 35-40 minutes, and he can able to explain to us about SOC reporting, and then we'll be having question answer. So over to Ashwin now.
So thank you, Rajesh. If you can just unshare your screen, I will share my screen.
Yes, please.
So let me know if you can see the screen.
Yes, sir.
So I will make it full screen.
Yes, we can see.
So you can see the screen? Okay. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session on SOC reports. So today we are going to talk about the effective use of SOC reports. So there have been, we all know what SOC reports are, but today we will see how to effectively use them in a current scenario where we are seeing increasing data breaches every day. So this is the agenda for today: introduction, the context, myths versus facts, risk management, and then SOC reports are used for what, and then how SOC reports are used for cloud services.
Sir,
Hello,
your
sir.
voice is breaking.
Hello. Your voice is echoing to me.
Yes.
It's going to echo. I don't. Hold on.
Someone else's mic is also on.
I think other people's mics are on. That is causing the problem.
Yeah, correct.
If anybody else could go on mute, please.
Yeah, I think now it's better.
I think Miss Anjali joined the two sessions, Anjali guest and Anjali guest, and that from her side is echo is I think generating because Anjali has login two names, same name but two login.
Okay, so let's try now. So in the meantime, I'm playing some introduction about our company. This is what we are. We are doing SOC reports. We are doing cyber maturity. We are a CPA firm focusing on cloud data security and privacy only. And we are also empaneled with Cloud Security Alliance as auditors for the STAR compliance. And that's a small introduction about our company. Right. My background, I've been in this audit industry since the year 2002. And I'm a CPA and MBA myself, and some of the certifications are mentioned here. And not only I'm in this profession, but I also have been contributing back to the profession. I did a volunteer for the ISACA magazine as a reviewer, journal as a reviewer for almost 7 years, from 2013 to 2020. I'm also contributed to Cloud Security Alliance as a corporate member. I've been a co-author to some of their STAR guides. And of course, I've been working in this industry for almost 20 years now. Some of our clients are well-known names also. These are all clients for SOC 2 reports, which is our major focus as on today. If you see the top 3 names, they're all household names, well-known names. The 3 names below are cloud startups. They were startups, but today there are thousands plus companies and doing well. And we have been auditing them for almost 4 or 5 years now. Coming to the context is that the cybercrime is increasing. These expected to be to $10.5 trillion by 2025. It is almost half the size of US GDP, and it would be about 4 to 5 times of India GDP. So that's the size of the cybercrime that we are talking about. And another challenge that we are facing is increasing of data breaches. So it's also said that about 63% of all data breaches are directly or indirectly linked to third parties, right? And that's our focus today, and how SOC reports can be used to see and to comply with most of the requirements, and of course to prevent data breaches also. Cloud factor is an increasing factor today. Cloud services providers are also third parties, and part of the 63% of the data breaches they contribute. It's also a big market, $1 trillion estimated by IDC. 93% of the enterprises already have a multi-cloud strategy, and SaaS is a major factor into it. More than 20,000. This 20,000 is the old number. I don't have a exact new figure. In my opinion, could be more than 40 to 50,000 numbers even as of today, and it's more than $141 billion as a SaaS as a market size itself. Right? Everybody is moving to the cloud, and that's creating even more challenges today. The SOC background, SOC is commonly used as a vendor compliance tool for third-party data security risks. The financial data, we use SOC 1 reports. For non-financial data, we use the SOC 2 reports, which covers the trust services criteria of security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. And for cloud services, we have the cloud CSA CCM. Of course, we also have the C5, the German cloud security standard, to be reported along with the SOC 2 reports. Here's a brief history of the SOC reports. And this is how the journey started in 1974 with SAS 3, moving on to popularly known as SAS 70 since 1992. And then the SSE 16 was well known in 2018. And before that, we had the trust services criteria in 23, the web trust, systrust, and the SOC 1, the names came in 2011. In 2017, there was a major change. The SOC for cybersecurity was launched, and in 2020, the SOC for supply chain was launched. With this, the definition also changed, right? I'll come to the next slide to talk about it, but these two reports, SOC for cybersecurity and SOC for supply chain, are actually for any entities and not just for service organizations. So that's an important change since 2017, 2018, as it was applicable in 2018. There are certain myths versus facts which I would like to address for SOC reports. Like, this is based out of our experience from the talking to the customers and the community at large, right? And of course, there will be more, but I've just taken some few to address and also compare it with the other vendor compliance tool for data security, which is the ISO 27001. But if you go on to compliance for data security, these are the two popular reports that companies ask. So many vendor compliance organizations have a checklist. Do you have a SOC 2 or do you have a ISO 27001? And that's the reason I chose to do a little comparison as to how these two stand against each other. So the first myth is the definition. SOC is only for service organizations. So we just saw the history since the launch of the SOC for cybersecurity standard or the framework and the SOC for supply chain. The definition also got changed in 2017. So it's now system and organization controls. And the SOC is not only for service organizations, but for any entity. Any entity for their internal compliance or the internal reports can do the SOC for cybersecurity and SOC for supply chain, not just service organizations. Coming next is second myth is when SOC 2 has got 5 trust services criteria, we should be doing all the 5 trust services criteria. That's not required, right? You only required to do the security category, also known as the common criteria. That's the minimum requirement. Just because the framework provides 5 criteria, it is not mandatory to report on all, right? We will take this subject also in the last when we discuss on the scoping aspects. SOC is an audit and a certificate is issued. So SOC is an attest engagement. It starts with the description of controls, which the entity makes, which is about 30 to 40 page document in the prescribed AICPA format, covering DC1 to DC9, the areas as governed under the AICPA rules. And you give a description of controls against which the examination or the engagement is carried out, and a test report is provided, which may be about 100 odd pages. So it has 4 sections. Section 1 is the auditor's opinion. Section 2 is the management assertion. Section 3 is the description of controls, which is the ownership of the description lies with the entity being reported on, right? And there's no certificate issued in a SOC report, at least not as per the AICPA standard. Again, next comparison is many clients say, oh, we are an ISO 27001 certified company. We should be automatically be compliant to SOC requirements. We are a PCI, not only PCI 27, we also having PCI controls implemented. We are having everything, so we should be automatically doing the SOC tool. It may or may not be true because depending on how the controls have been implemented, the SOC in the security category itself has about 300 points of focus. And these may be relating to the control objectives, but the controls may be even more. So each control objective or point of focus may have multiple controls, right? And depending on the scope of the services that is being reported on, right, these controls may go even more, right? So there is no comparison between the ISO and the SOC report. Another factor that we hear from customers is we know CIA, we know the integrity as per the security definitions, and the CIA should map to the processing integrity of TSC. So my thought and my opinion on this is that the integrity in the CIA refers to the entire entity as a whole, and it looks at the integrity of the entire systems and covering the backups, the storage media, everything per se. The processing integrity in the TSC refers to specific data inputs, processing integrities, the processing controls, and the outputs. So entities who want an assurance on the specific outputs for each data set or each data output that they give, they go for processing integrity for a specific data set. Similarly, privacy also has similar notions that entity they have a privacy policy, they think that they are compliant to the entire privacy requirements as per the TSC. That's not true, and we will look at it in the later slides also. SOC 2 type 2 can be for the past period. People say, oh, we have a very good cyber maturity. You come and report us for the past 1 year. That can be true in some environments, but certain new environments where the controls are not effective, there is no evidence to report on 12 months or 6 months, specifically in log environments, log management areas and SIM areas, and where the logs are overwritten in 30 days or 90 days time. There is no evidence available, and as a company policy, we have taken a stand that we normally audit only for the future 6 months or the 12 months period. We generally don't go back period because of the issues in getting the evidences for the past 6 to 12 months. As the minimum requirement is 6 months for a type 2 audit and 12 months is the maximum time. So this is not like a surveillance audit. It is like reporting on the operating effectiveness of the controls, right? And we just don't come for 2 days or 3 days and look at the past record and just give you an audit report. It doesn't happen. We need evidence every month. We review all the evidences. We come back to you back and forth, and whatever are the areas of deficiencies or improvement, we give you in our feedback to improve on. And that is how we conduct this audit, as continuous monitoring of the operating effectiveness, rather than just coming at the end of the session for 2 days and 3 days and giving you the SOC report. That's not how we do, right? Another myth is that just because you are AICPA member, you can sign on the SOC report, or just becoming a CPA is good enough to sign on a SOC to report, specifically on the TSC criteria. So like ISACA, if you're an ISACA member, you do not be a CISA, right? Similarly, just because you are AICPA member, you are not necessarily a CPA, right? Anyone can pay the membership fees for AICPA and buy the guides and become a member. And the CPA's status is given by the state under which you are registered, and the license is provided by the state. And of course, if you are going to audit listed public entities, you need to be PCOB registered companies. And if you want to be on the cloud security alliances, you need to be a cloud security alliance member and have this required cybersecurity qualifications also. Just because you have a CPA qualification, you shouldn't be auditing the cybersecurity if you don't have that subject matter expertise. That's my part on this. Another area of difference between the ISO 27001 and the SOC reports is the risk management that we generally see in the entities which we audited, specifically the SME segment. Now, if you see the SOC 2 trust services criteria are aligned closely to the COSO risk framework, and the security or the common criteria covers some of these areas like control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information communication, monitoring activities, also risk management and the risk mitigation areas. So risk management has to be taken as a life cycle approach and not just an assessment, which we see in many companies do. So I'll come to that in the next slide. So the COSO risk framework can be applied at the entity level or a division or operating unit or function level also. And it's used for operations, reporting, and compliance also. So these are some of the areas the COSO risk framework covers: the governance, strategy and objective setting, performance, reviews and revisions, information and communication. And these are some of the details which I'm skipping for now in the interest of time. So coming to back to the risk measurement and metrics. So unlike what we see in many companies just do an assessment, and on the control they say this is the control and the risk becomes low. However, from a SOC 2 and the COSO risk management framework perspective, what we are looking for is the measurement. First is the definition of what risks are you measuring, what is the frequency of measuring those risks, what are your variances, what are your baselines for those measurements, and whether you're measuring it every month or daily or weekly as the case may be. And the exceptions of the variances must be reported to a governance committee. This is an area that we see is missing in many organizations. They have a defined assessment, but the governance to it is environments. And this is where we advise all customers: you need to define what you need to measure, and you need to measure it in the frequency, how the impact of that risk is to your environment. Coming quickly to cloud risks, the CSA, which is Cloud Security Alliance, has given about 11 major risks. Data breach is the major one, out of which 8% of is data. Misconfiguration and inadequate change control is the next one, where 73% of the organization at least have major impacts. People don't do VAPTs, don't do baselines, and just push their applications in the cloud, which is a major risk factor. Identity access management, 80% of the data breaches are still due to that. We still see default and weak passwords in many environments. That's a major issue. Cloud strategy and architecture is not done. People just for the sake of cost savings move to the cloud without an understanding. In a recent well-known name, the S3 bucket got leaked, and all the passwords of a major company were leaked due to non-proper strategy and architecture. Account hijacking is another major factor also in the cloud environment. 70% of all attacked businesses are reporting fraudulent emails. APIs is a major issue. Companies do not take API risks as part of the risk assessments. That's the major issue we look at. And if you see, even in the cases of several companies, APIs is a major risk that need to be considered. Insider risks, even for cloud environments, are a common cause of concern. Weak control plane is there because companies are just moving to the cloud. They have no visibility as to what are the data stored in which cloud environments, internal, external, what is the impact of those data set, how many cloud services the companies are having internally, externally. That's a big challenge in many organizations. Because of the API issues, the metastructure and application structure failures do occur, which is a major challenge. 2/3 of the organizations expose their APIs to public, and it's a cause of concern. Again, we don't have visibility. Only 7% businesses have good visibility of their critical data. This is based on the various statistics. This one is from Forcepoint, sorry. Abuse and nefarious use of cloud services is again a major challenge. 73% of the traditional firewalls and antivirus security is irrelevant or obsolete today in the cloud environment, right? So these are some of the high-level risks. We have today a session on HIPAA, so I thought we include even some of the privacy concerns that we have and how SOC reports can also be used for complying or at least demonstrating compliance towards privacy concerns. So we all have seen the news on various privacy regulations, GDPR, CCPA, Indian Data Protection Bill, etc., Brazilian laws, and several other laws which are coming up. And the Cambridge Analytica was an eye-opener for the whole industry with fines, which we will see in the next slide. The failure of the EU Safe Harbor and the Privacy Shield, the increasing privacy fines, right? And increasing even HIPAA fines. Even HIPAA for the past several years, the standard is there, but we see the fines are increasing. And we will see in the next session of how HIPAA is impacting. But to my knowledge, the basic issues like log management, risk management, default access, controls still persist in majority of the organizations. So that's the major challenge in even today. After several years of standards coming up and so many standards and so many requirements, this is the basic cyber hygiene is still not there in many organizations. So these are some of the top fines in privacy. Of course, these are just the FTC and the ISO and the ICO fines. And I mean, this is all public figures. We know all of this. And even recently, we heard that a top platform, this is a hotel management, hotel booking platform, was fined just because the 72 hours of deadline, I mean, was crossed in reporting of the data breach. They reported after 72 hours, and just because they reported after 72 hours, they were fined under the GDPR rules. So that's the kind of data security or the data breach and the data rules that we are looking forward to, right? And the organizations should be well prepared. Companies, to my knowledge, are not yet GDPR compliant in spite of the standard or the act coming in for the past few years. The privacy controls in TAC are under the 50 points of focus. And these are the 8 areas: notice and communication of objectives, choice and consent, collection, use, retention and disposal, access, disclosure and notification, quality, monitoring and enforcement. These are the 8 areas. They have been reorganized from the 10, which was the gap earlier. Now they have all moved to the TSC framework in 2018. And many of even the frameworks or the laws were actually taken from, some of the concepts were taken from the gap of the AICPA. So if you see, the old gap is now old or obsolete. It is moved to the new trust services criteria in 2018 from 10 areas or the 10 aspects. Now it is 8 aspects. And in 2020, AICPA came out with a new privacy management framework, which is aligned to the GDPR, the CCPA, and of course the trust services criteria. So gap is no more. Many of my friends from security community keep asking me, mail, where is the new gap? Can I have a copy of the new gap? Because I'm CPA and people come to me for those guidances. But please be advised, the gap in its original form does not exist anymore. So coming to scoping and cost, so I know we are just on time, so I'll take only 5 more minutes, 6 minutes to cover some of these aspects. So this is also based on some of the experiences that we have from some of the clients. They say, oh, I need a SOC 2 report or SOC 1 report. So for coming up to a cost, we first need to understand the scope, looking at whether it's a SOC 1 that we need or a SOC 2 we need. If you need a SOC 1, then what are the financial data? What is the financial data? What are the specific processes that we are reporting on? It's not that the entire entity is hundreds of databases on hundreds of processes can be reported on. So of course we can do that, but it's going to it's going to be a cost factor involved for every specific process, every specific output that we report on. So it's not a generalized way that we can give a blanket cost to any specific SOC report. It is specific, and even if you look at SOC 2, then we need to look at whether the reporting period is 6 months or 12 months in case of type 2, whether it's a type 1 report, What are the aspects that you are reporting on? Is it only security? My company say by default, all, we want all. Oh, sir, we have a privacy policy, right? We already have our integrity. We already ISO certified. So based on the ISO, you please give us on all the aspects. It doesn't work like this. So we need to be specific because the processing integrity and the privacy aspects, right, in the SOC 2 are different. We just can't report on the company as a whole. It is relevant to a specific business process, specific data set, right? And specific activities and specific even locations. I mean, like you have 20 locations or 5 locations or 10 locations. As an auditor, we need to visit all the locations. We need to look at the controls at all locations. It cannot be a blanket cost. I heard some organizations, some CPA firms are doing a blanket cost, but in my opinion, that is not right. That is not fair. Even the entities who are requesting for SOC reports, some come from the vendor groups, some come from the QMS groups, and they are not aware of some of the concepts and some of the scoping details which are required. They just say, okay, call vendors, ask them for CPA reports or the CPA SOC report without defining their scope and without defining what they need. Just because some vendor asked, oh, we need a SOC 2, okay, float a RFP for SOC 2. And it goes to the purchasing department or the QMS department who have little or no knowledge into what they are dealing with. The scope is not defined and RFP is floated just, oh, we need a SOC 2 or SOC 1, we need a SOC report. They don't know whether we need a type 1, they don't know whether we need a type 2, they don't know what criteria we need to report on, they don't know what databases are in scope, what processes are in scope. It doesn't work in today's environment, right? And specifically when we see a lot of data breaches, a lot of penalties and fines being done, it is not an easy subject. Privacy, if you look at, is even more complex than security because it involves an application reengineering, right? If your application does not have those parameters to look at those controls or to control those, it may involve an application reengineering. I'm sure we have cybersecurity as well as privacy professionals here. They would concur with me that privacy is not an easy subject. Companies like Facebook, Google, and all the many big names are still struggling to be privacy compliant. And small or medium companies, just because they have a privacy policy, they can't be privacy compliant in this fashion, right? We need a data flow diagram. We need a data privacy impact assessment. We need a detailed assessment as to what are our data flows, where it all is being stored, what are the compliance requirements, how are the controls implemented, what are the input fields, what are the output fields, where is being processed, where it all being stored in flat files, how the data is moving. We need to have a holistic picture of all the data sets in scope before we can actually report or even audit. So somebody can please mute if it is they are unmuted. Please kindly mute. So I think this is one of the last few slides. I have provided some few references. The first one is it is the AICPA. You can download. So please unmute, please. Please mute yourself. So the first one is a free download. If you go on the link, I'm sure Rajesh is going to share this links on the chat. This link is a free link. You can download the trust services criteria, which is mapped to ISO, mapped to NIST, mapped to COBIT, mapped to several frameworks. I think 5 of them have been listed in the Excel sheet. You can also download the PDF, the trust services criteria, which gives you an explanation and details. All these are available for free. You don't have to pay to any company to look at the trust services criteria. This is a free resource by AICPA, and I urge all the entities who are going for SOC reports, download it, analyze it, do your due diligence as to what controls do you have in place, and then call for somebody to audit. Make a scoping sheet, understand well as to what are you looking at, right? And this is a free resource. You don't have to pay anybody. You don't have to have a consultant in place. If you just spend 1 or 2 days to understand what you need, you will get there, right? The second link is, of course, a paid. It's a guide. If anybody wants to purchase a SOC reporting guide as to how auditors are doing it, it's available on AICPA site. You can purchase this guide. Cloud Security Alliance has given free guides and so many free resources. You can download it from the CSS site. Some of the frameworks are free. Some of the top risks are free. Some of the best practices and white papers are free. Please use those free resources. I also included a YouTube link, which is our channel. Some of the videos on the basic SOC concepts are also given free to all our customers. Please make use of these free resources. Please, when you do a SOC reporting, if it is used for your internal organization, please make sure that you do your scoping right. You know what you are getting into, you know what are the controls that you have implemented. And not only when you are implementing the SOC in your environment, if you're also using this as a vendor compliance for your cloud providers, or if you're using those cloud services, please download those SOC reports. Please analyze how does it impact you. Please download and see whether the availability or data security or whatever the other controls which you are banking, just because they have a SOC 2 doesn't mean they have all the controls which are reported on or they are operating effectively. Some of these controls may not be applicable, but how does it impact you? Please do your due diligence. If you are using the third parties, ask and download and analyze those SOC reports, which is required from a cybersecurity or a vendor due diligence perspective. I think that's what I had to say. I think I am on time. This is our disclaimer. And this, whatever is the session that I did today, it is not consulting, and you don't have to bank on it, and you can't, get back to me that we said this. This is a general thought. The general thing is not a consulting engagement that we did for you. And if you need to contact us, our email ID is here, our website is here. Feel free to contact, use our resources. And now I will go back to Rajesh for any questions if you may have on this.
Thank you very much, Ashwin. And yes, we have a couple of questions, what we received in the chat, as well as, on my WhatsApp message also. With the time limitation, we'll take, 2 or 3 questions. First, people wanted to understand that, they are already certified on ISO 27001. So how much time it will require for them to make it ready for SOC reporting? SOC 2 and, type 1, type 2 actually. So they were asking some timeline for that.
Yeah, correct. So again, I'll repeat some of things what I already mentioned. You first need to define your scope, define a specific business processes, what you need to report, what criteria are you reporting, security, availability, confidentiality, processing integrity, privacy, and security itself has got 300 points of focus, right? So, and if you look at all the 5 criteria, you may go even more than 500 points of focus. So depending on the scope, depending on the locations, we will be able to tell you the time and the costs.
Okay. Second thing, regarding what are the controls can be, required for the sub-services organization if they want to go for SOC 2 reporting? Yes.
Yeah, so sub-services, either you can include them into your SOC report, or they can do it independently. If you want to include the sub-services in part of your organization, then that's almost an audit of another entity by itself, right? And it depends on what are the controls that you are referring to those sub-services, what those sub-services data security controls are impacting your organization, right? And we will have to look at those specifically.
Okay, one more question came from the participant, that what is the preferable SOC 2 type 2 attestation done, CPA or PCOB, the registered firm?
So a registered firm, PCOB firm, is always has more credit, right, than a freelance CPA. Just because somebody is a freelance CPA, you go and they are not registered, right? Tomorrow he may be there, tomorrow he may not be there. So this gives a credibility to the organization and even to your customers, right? That you're going with a PCOB registered firm, Cloud Security Alliance registered firm, and it's a credibility of even just being a CPA. If you can't challenge your environment, what is the use of that audit? An auditor should be able to challenge your environment, right? And he should be able to ask you those questions which he has the caliber to ask, right? Just being say yes, and okay, I'll give you a report doesn't make sense.
Fine. And the last questions, I think, looking at the time and how organizations need to be audited actually, as part of the internal, readiness before they go for, SOC 2, requirement.
Yeah, absolutely. So internal readiness will come as to first define what they are looking at. So many organizations, when they approach us, they don't know what are the specific business processes also that they want to get audited. So SOC is specific to a business process. It's not generally at the entity level. Because for the last year, several years, it's been used for third-party vendor.
It's got muted.
Ashwin, we lost you in between. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got muted. Sorry. So the third party, since it has been predominantly third party service organizations. So what services you provide to those parties and how those services are impacted, generally companies report on that, not at the entity level.
And any specific controls we need to look at it in the supply chain actually?
Supply chain is a big subject itself, and I think we'll have a separate discussion on that because it involves the entire end-to-end chain from all the sides of it, and there's a new framework for it, and it's going to be a long discussion on supply chain itself.
Correct.
Okay, fine. So thank you very much, Ashwin, for providing very much insight on this, SOC reporting, and I'm sure participant who has, several questions, they got some insight. If you still want any more information, you can get back to us, and we will able to provide you detail on this. Once again, thank you very much from all of us.